Hey y'all. So, I had some fun this week working on my little dining table setup, and I first just had these models, but I was like, you know what? No, this needs a little bit more character. And after texturing all this, getting my little details in, I was like, let's write a little bit of a story here. So I made a couple more props to add that I'm going to show all the differences that I made to them. um, so this is where I was yesterday. And then today, if I go in here, added some ingredients of sorts for like a stew or a soup. And some part of me can't really decide between making this like Link's grandma's little dining table setup or a witch's table setup. So that's why I have mushrooms, garlic, salt. The eyeball is optional. I could simply just do that, remove it, and then rebake, and it's gone. But I wanted to write a story with it, and the eyeball is definitely a huge tool to that. But anyways, where do I even start? I'm gonna show off the candlestick first since it's the top one, and whatever, it's fine. Um, but I added a lot of like height information, rust, made the wick look like it's been lit, added some kind of like smoky, when you get smoke on something, it starts to turn black. It's like a little bit of ash. That's what I got on there. Bunch of rust, of course. I wanted this to look old and decayed, and just some other things. Like I added my own custom ambient occlusion at the bottom of the candle. As you can see, there's a huge difference in that. And then the burns that we have as well. Huge difference just in those little tiny details. And then, of course, the height information that I have here. Another thing, let's look at the cutting board. The cutting board was my first textured object, and I love it. I love the scratches that I got on here and the weathering, because cutting boards weather really fast since we use them constantly. So I have the scratches in the middle, some on the ends just to add some spice to it maybe, but here's all that. And then our knife, our little rusty knife that we've got here. Where is it? Oh, it's in the same one. But I have these little spots here that I painted on using a mask brush, some rust on it. Rust isn't as, like, as you can see, there's still some shine there, but it's pretty much taken over this knife. I changed the color of this aluminum here, or whatever it is, metal. And I also, this wood here is the same wood as the table. Used that. What else did I do? This plate here. Where is the plate? There it is. At first, I had it kind of like pretty plain, empty, which is fine. Like, it doesn't look bad, but I was thinking this is kind of plain. So I added a design on here and some other things. Like, I have these dirt and grime generators on here that can easily be toggled. And then our milk bottle. I had to add the cute little cow icon. It's a Zelda reference, I'll be honest. We got milk in there. It's just milk. And then the glass that we did before. The only thing I added was a bunch of smudges to make it look more rough looking, as you can see. And there's also like splotches from the milk being in the jar. Things like that. I think next week I'm gonna fix this model here so it looks like it's actually in the jar and not just like this floating liquid. The chair. I changed some things with the chair. Oh, with the pillow and the chair. On the chair, I also did some like custom ambient occlusion where these little rods meet the actual chair. Very subtle but meaningful. And then the pillow, I also did some custom ambient occlusion. That's one of my favorite things to do when I'm texturing, is just to make some areas darker and some areas lighter. But I added like custom wrinkles and wear and tear. Like I made it lighter on the edge of this pillow because naturally the cloth's gonna get either lighter or darker if you sit on it for a long time. I would know. Um but I have these like darker little wrinkles in here and then these lighter, just to kind of mimic that it's soft and you want to sit on it, right? So the difference, a little kind of zoomed out. There it was before. Here it is after. It looks a lot more aged. Oh, and of course I have like a generator for the bottom to make it look more round. Otherwise it's kind of flat. Okay, what else haven't I shown? I added a generator to the table. Nothing too crazy. The material honestly does a lot of the work with the aging. If anything, I might add some like wear and tear along the edges, like custom wear and tear, but that's really it. Let's see. Now for our new salt shaker, I have another custom mask up at the top here. I did not want to model out these little holes, and honestly, we're not going to really see it, right? You barely see it. So I just did a custom mask on here and painted some dots on here to represent like the shaker being able to go right? And some salt in here. This is actually a metal texture that I turned off the metalness. I think it's like a brushed metal, not a brushed, sandblasted metal texture. And I messed around with it. Got this salt material sort of thing from it. And I wanted the glass to kind of stick out a little bit more, so I added a dirt generator to this as well. I'm thinking about adding it to the milk bottle too, so it has a little bit more variation. The garlic I also textured. It's very subtle, but also meaningful, because when you look at garlic, there's these little tiny details that you can barely see, but for that, I think I used the wax base material that they have. And I just painted some little tiny details. Look at the difference. There it was after, before, after, before, after. Obviously, you can see this like bright spot in the middle, but along the outside, first off, I barely added some negative height to it, to my paintbrush, but I also made it white and darker. Like I added some white and like brown lines to the edges, just to kind of give it a little bit more interest when you look at it. Huge difference. You will not be able to tell from over here, or barely, but it's fine. It was fun. Then I have the mushrooms. Mushrooms were fun to do. I used, again, a wax material and a height brush. If I go in here, this is all the wax information, but I changed the color a bit, changed some of the generators on it to make it red and look more mushroomy. Gave it spots on top with a little bit of height information, and then underneath I went full blast with the height and just like slowly went in on my UV map and gave it a lot of depth, because mushrooms are very interesting underneath. I really didn't want to miss out on that. And same with on the stem as well. I have it a little bit on the stem, a lot of dirt on the stem, which is actually a material I made for one of the Substance Painter tutorials. It was like dirt ground or something. And I was like, you know what? Let's just paint that on there. It's got all the information I want, so that's on there as well. And then finally, the last one I made was the eyeball. Got a lot of fun stuff going on here. I didn't go too crazy with the iris because I need to move on and work on my internship today. But I made it at least interesting from where we're going to be seeing it. I made it a blue eye because maybe it's my eye. Who knows? Added veins. At first, I think I used a skin texture for the base of the eyeball, and the back here is actually a flesh material that they have. I just changed some of the parameters on there, and it looks pretty good, so I'm just going to keep it like that. There's no need to do anything extra, to be honest. But I added these cracks up here because there weren't enough, and just kind of made it more interesting texture-wise. And I looked at a reference, and pupils don't tend to be like a clean and cut circle on your eye. They kind of blur out a little bit. So that's why that's a little blurry. Everything's a little blurry in here. Obviously, there could be a lot more detail, but from afar, it looks like an eyeball. That's all I care about. But anyways, that's pretty much it that I have for this week. I would like to add like a little bit of a background, like maybe a cauldron or a soup pot, or I don't know, something. But this honestly kind of tells a story on its own. This has this like grandma sort of feel to it with the designs, and then honestly the milk is just there. The milk was very important to me. But as you can see, like, they're cooking something, right? Something very odd with garlic, mushrooms, and eyeballs, but that's typical witch ingredients, at least to me, that were easy-ish to model, so I could get this over with, you know? But I think it looks pretty good, and I'm really proud of it. I think next week I'm going to be adding some lighting to this and putting it into Unity, which I'm really excited for, so we'll see you guys next week then.